Now we're going to make the onboarding flow for this application. So that includes the sign up page as well as the login screen. For that, we're going to use chakra-ui. It's just going to make things a lot easier for us. So I'm going to go ahead and install chakra-ui, and they have the command for you to copy paste on their website. I'll have the link in the description if you're going to do the same thing. We're also going to install a couple of other packages like chakra-ui/icons because we want to use some of their built-in icons. Also Formic and Yup. This is going to allow us to make easy and extensible and functional forms that have client-side validation. So I'm going to go ahead and install those packages. So now that they're installed, we can go ahead and just run this application. And I'm going to head over to localhost 3000. And so now I'm just going to delete all the CSS that comes with Next.js. And I'm going to clean out this index file here. And over here, I'm going to clean this out as well. Okay. So first of all, we need to wrap our underscore app.tsx in a component called chakra provider. Basically, this is just going to pass down chakra-ui's functionality to every component in our application. The next thing that we want to do, which is optional, is just render the CSS reset component. This is going to put in some opinionated defaults into our applications when it comes to CSS. Okay, so now I'm going to head over to index.tsx, and this is where we're going to get started. We're going to get started here, but then we will be making a component in another folder as this becomes a larger code base. So really what I want to do is I want to have a card in the middle of the screen that has a heading, and it has a bunch of inputs for username, email, and password, and confirm password, and then it will have a sign up button and as well as a login button in case a user already has an account. And I'm also going to include a forgot password link, even though we're not going to have the functionality for it yet, but I'm just going to put it preemptively because we will be implementing the functionality in future videos part of this series. So first of all, we can just render a container, and this is just going to keep our application at a certain maximum width. And then here we can say that we want the height to be 100 view height. Then down here, we can now render the Formic component. Now we also need to provide it some initial values. So that's going to be an object, and it'll hold a username, an email, a password, and confirm, which is just a confirmation of a password. Then we want a validation schema. And here we would have to import Yup, and this is where we're going to implement our client-side rendering functionality. So here it will be Yup dot, and I have to get rid of these extra curly braces. So Yup dot object, and then here username would be Yup dot string dot required dot minimum of 6, and then here we would, as the second argument, is the error message. So if it's not minimum of 6, it would be username too short, and then here the error message is username is required. So we're going to do something similar for the password. However, for the email, it's going to be a little bit different. So they have a built-in email validation that we can just do that, and then the error message would be invalid email, like so. And I have to obviously change this to email. And then you might be wondering how we do the confirmation of the password. That's pretty easy. And here the error message is password confirmation is required. And at the end you would just do one of, and then here it would just be an array with yup.ref. This is going to grab the value of our password or null. And then the error message is passwords don't match, like so. So now we have our client-side validation already set up. And finally, we can specify the onSubmit, which is just a function that has access to the values and some actions that we can run. And so we're just going to console log for now, console log our values, and then actions.reset form whenever we submit, and no curly braces here. So in here, we can render a VStack, and this is just going to center all of its children vertically, and it's going to have them horizontally centered, and they're going to be stacked up vertically. This will render as a form component by Formic, so that whenever we click submit, it'll automatically hook it up for us. We don't got to worry about that. I mentioned earlier that I wanted to make a card, and for that we need to have it centered vertically and horizontally. So this will be our card. So it needs to have a parent that's centered horizontally. And then this one, I would give it a height of 100% and justify center. So it justifies its children to the center, which is vertically. So then the card will be centered vertically and horizontally automatically. And we can just take a look at that by giving it a shadow of 2XL and a width of 100%. Let's give it a background of gray 50, and let's give it some padding of 4. And so we can't really see much. You do see a little slight thing here, but we actually need to start adding elements inside of this, and then you'll start seeing the background and the shadow and everything. So inside of here, we're just going to have a heading, and it's just going to say register. And then under it, we want to have all of our form controls. So for that, I actually want to create a separate component because it will get very messy very quickly. And we're going to be reusing the same functionality over and over again. So over here in the modules, I'm going to create a folder called components. And in here, I will have a login folder, and then I'll just have a login input.tsx. So here we can just make our component like so, and then up here we'll have an interface called props, and so this will be a type of react.functional component that takes in props, and then we would do export like that. Now we need to expand upon the props, and I'm actually going to make this a type, so we can just do equals. And so basically we're going to be passing in a different name for every of our inputs, because the name has to match the name that we defined here. Different name and a different label. That's where really they differ. All the error messages and everything will be handled automatically. We don't have to worry about that. So here in the type of props, we're going to do a join on input props, which is just all the input props that chakra-ui has available for us. And we're also going to have a name and a label, like so. And so we want to get those things and then spread the rest. And then here, if I can spell return correctly, we're just going to be returning a form control. And this is using chakra-ui. And the first thing we need is the form label. And here we're just going to render our label. I want to give this a font weight of semi-bold. And so here we're going to write an input, and then we can pass it in the as prop so it renders as a field. And this is going to allow us to use all of Formic's functionality automatically. So first I just want to spread over the props into this component, and then I want to change the focus border color to purple 500. And then I also want to change the variant to flushed. And so last but not least, we would need here a formic, or not formic, but form error message, where we would have our error message. Now to hook into all this extra functionality, we need to use the use field hook, and it takes in the name of our component or our input, and it returns us all the field functionality like on blur, on touch, all these things, and meta. Meta holds meta.error, so any error messages we may have gotten. Here we can do is invalid is equal to meta.error and meta.touched. And then of course here on this we need to spread all of the field things so then it could all work with formic. And so now we're ready to just reuse this component a bunch of times in here. We can do login input, and I'm just going to go ahead and do here auto complete off because I think that's very annoying. Here this needs a name, so let's give this a name of email, a label of email. Pretty sure that's all it needs. There we go. So let's do a couple of those. This one will be username, this one will be password, and we can give it a type of password because we're spreading any props that we pass on automatically to it. So that's the really good part about this. And then here the name will be confirm, and the label is confirm password. And yeah, the type was password as well. So now we have these things going on, and it's very nice. It's looking very nice. So now I want to add some buttons down here, and I'm actually going to put them together in a button group. And every button will have the same color scheme of purple. So we can go ahead and define that. And then the first button here, it's going to be the login button. And so we need to import that. And then the second one will be sign up. This one will have a variant of outline because it's a secondary button. And I want to give these buttons a width of 100%. But firstly, you have to give it to the parent, so then they can each have 100%, and they're going to actually fight over the space. Like so. So they're both filling it up equally. Now I actually want to make these buttons a little bit bigger, so here I'm going to give it a size of large and padding top of 4 just so I can give it some more spacing. And there we go. So now when we click login, I want it to take us to a login page. So I'm going to go here to const router is use router, and then back down here on click we'll do router.push/login. So now when we click this, we're taking a /login, but we haven't created that page as of yet. Okay, so now we have this beautiful registration page. Now let's actually make it a component. So here it will be register, if I can type it, .tsx. And I'm actually gonna just create a component like that and copy everything, all of this over to this. And then we'll go down here and like that. And so I also need to copy all of these imports like that, and the router thing copied over as well. And then here we would just render register, and then here we could save the file. And the login input, we have to import it again like so. And actually over here we can do export default login input. So then here, get rid of these curly braces. Okay, so now our index is very clean and we have it all here. And I'm actually going to put this in the login folder and update this. And now we're going to create a new component. And I have to update this import as well. We're going to create a new component and it's going to be called login.tsx. And it's going to be something very similar. So I'm actually just going to copy paste the entire thing. Oops. And all I have to do is really just change the name of the thing and a couple of things around. So this button will be back. This one will still be login. And I'll change the styles on this and the functionality. So the back button will take us back. Like that. I think I broke something. There. And of course, okay, that should be better now. And so now we can create a page called login.tsx. And we already have a component named login, so I'm just going to rename this to login page. And then here we just render the login component like so. And let me put this in the correct folder, and that means I have to update this import, I'm pretty sure. Where was it? Oh yeah, over here. Okay. And so now in this login page, we don't need them to confirm their password because they're logging in. So we can get rid of that and just get rid of it completely. And then instead of doing router.push, we do router.back. So let's try it out. Okay, it works. And we need to change this to say login. Perfect. And this says email twice. That's not good. So here the label, we forgot to change it, and we probably forgot to change it over here as well. Okay, now when you go back, it takes you back to register. Now one more thing that we're gonna do is here in the register where it says login, we're gonna keep it as so, but here where it says back, I'm gonna put like a little arrow just to tell the user that we're actually going back. So left icon, this takes in some JSX, so it's gonna be a back, let me see what it's called, an arrow back icon, like that. And one more thing, I just feel better if the back was on the left, like that. One more thing we need to do is when we click login, or we don't really have to do anything, we just make this a type of submit and do the same thing over here. So this would be a type of submit. So now when we submit this, all the errors start popping up, and we can see that we forgot to make the email required, or else we would have gotten an error message when we try to submit our form. Is required. And same thing for our login. An email is required to log in. That's for sure. Okay, so now when you try to sign up, everything is required. All right, so that's our onboarding system. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned. We're going to keep expanding on this project.